So what we did to deal with flakiness, because at the end of the day, we need to deal with it, even if it's not 100% the fault of tests. So we invest in information. We had meaningful logs. So meaningful logs is not just logs of the application. It's logs of the tests, log of infrastructure, and make those available. Because like we saw in the socio-technical systems, we need to have all the information available in order to gather and see where is it coming from, because when the test is running, the application is consuming a lot of memory, or we can see on the infrastructure logs what was causing that, and make that available for the entire team is something that we needed to do in order to try to understand what was causing this flakiness. So information is really important, and we did this adding the right logs to the test, to the application, that are meaningful, that have the right information for us to take the right decisions. And on the test side, we also had information whenever we think it was valuable. So screenshots, video, or traces, because sometimes an image is really, really helpful to understand, well, oh yeah, it still hasn't loaded the page, so it's probably an issue. Or, well, it never loads the button that I'm expecting to. Or I'm not in the page that I think I was. So all of those things are really important information. And create insightful reports, because most of the time when the test is running on the pipeline, what you see is the end result. So we are running 100 tests, and what we see is, well, it has passed or not. And you need to go there to look at the report. And if you have all of that information that we just talked about, logs, adding information in tests, you'll be able to build a report that have enough information for you to pinpoint the issue. And that is really, really important in order to deconstruct this flakiness information. On the second thing, invest in code. Like I said, tests or automated checks are code. So you need to review the test code. Check if you have incorrect assertions, if you are doing the right assertions or not. Check the code and take advice from your developers, because they are the ones used to build code. If you have built it and you are not that familiar with it, run them through your developer peers, because they will help you create code that is up to the standards. Make sure that you have active waits. Make sure that every time in your test you know what you are searching for and you are sure where you are at. So adding the active waits will go a long way. And make sure that the search methods for each one of the elements that you want to interact with are correct and not taking a lot of time for you to go. And this will, having this, review the test code, and it will be really, really, it will see that a little bit. We will see that if you share the good practices and the corrections that you did when you find a test that is flakiness, and you generate a good practices handbook with examples saying, well, we have this code in the test, it was generating a flakiness behavior, we did this, and now it is solved. So if you have this, please try to apply this correction. And making this available for the entire team is really, really valuable and helpful. And work with development teams. So we need to increase testability. Like I said before, make sure that you have the right ways to test your application in the most optimal possible way. And do this by sharing sessions. You need to share this with all of the teams. Share the best practices. Share what you find. How do you solve it? Because they will learn from what you did and will prevent errors from happening in the code. And because we need to cope with flakiness, we have also created a quarantine strategy. Well, what does that mean? In order for us to deconstruct this culprit flakiness of the automated checks, we need to create a strategy. So we added a quarantine tag to the tests for to put tests in quarantine. In quarantine means that they are not executed. But in order for you to put that tag, the code review must be done by your peers, and you need to add a manual test while we have the automated check in quarantine. So if you are removing an automated check, adding the quarantine tag, that means it will not be executed. You need to add a manual test in order for that area to be covered. And if it hurts, it will not be forgotten, because sometimes when you have these quarantine strategies and you are just adding quarantine tags to the tests, and they just are forgotten there and never solved. So if you have the manual tests, and the guys that are doing manual validations have one more test that they need to do that could be covered by automated, but it's not because it's in quarantine waiting to be fixed, it will help a lot. And also have a job that will execute the quarantine test in loop and register the results. Because the thing is, if you think the problem is in the automated check, you do a correction and you see that the next run it will pass. Is it really fixed? We're not sure. So we need to run that, 100 times, 200 times to make sure that statistically that test will be always green. And the hardest thing to do is review your testing approach. Because if you have too many tests, you need to cut that down, have a layered approach, try to add unit tests, try to add component tests, try to build up confidence in each one of the microservices in order to have only one or two UI or web validations on the top. Try to build atomic tests that are independent from each other, that are focused on what you want to test, and shift left. So add the amount of tests closer to the code, like unit tests that are doing faster validations, and that will get most of it in the code.